Let's welcome up Ryan Deiss.
Oh, standing ovation. Good. Thank you. Sure, so DigitalMarketer does training and certification for small, mid-sized, and some quite large companies in the area of digital marketing, as the name would suggest. I think what makes us different at DigitalMarketer is we do digital marketing. So we actually own a number of portfolio companies. DigitalMarketer is one of the companies that I founded and started and still continue to run today, but there's about 28 more that are in our portfolio. And so I'd started a number of these different companies, and I would go to events as an attendee to learn more about digital marketing, and people would ask me what I was doing. And so I started teaching and talking about the subject of digital marketing, and then people would ask me, well, do you have a book? No. Do you do consulting?
And then you wrote one?
Yeah, no, I didn't write it. Full disclosure, yeah. So we also wrote the book, Digital Marketing for Dummies, just came out. Yeah, all right. I think that was a team effort in every sense of the word. But didn't have a book, didn't do consulting, didn't do any of this stuff. And so people would ask me like, yeah, but teach me this. So I had an email list, and I would occasionally, if I wanted to go and start another business, I'd say, hey, everybody, I'm going to do a class on this marketing thing, and it'll be cool, and you'll like it, and pay me some money. And I was able to take that money and then put it into some of these other ventures. And it's how we've been able to start all these different companies without ever going out and taking any venture funding. So DigitalMarketer was the thing. It was that funding engine for me, right? It was a way that we could kind of sell off our raw materials. I heard a story that it's probably apocryphal, but supposedly Henry Ford, when the Ford Motor Company was first getting started, there was he was watching the assembly line process, and of course you have these cars going through, and they're sitting on these wooden crates that are basically holding it up. By the time a car went all the way through the assembly process, these crates were just charred, like they were burned from all the welding and everything. So get through the end of the assembly line process, they just throw the wooden crates away. And he looked at it and said, don't throw that away. That's not burnt wood, that's charcoal. We can sell that. That's charcoal, we can sell that. And the way the story goes, and again, I have no idea if this is actually true, but that doesn't change the benefit of it, is that the Ford Charcoal Company was founded from that, which later became known as Kingsford Charcoal. So for me, and I think it's important, it's a good lesson for everyone, like realize that when you go to work each day, whether you're working here at Galvanize or in your home or in an office, you're creating an enormous amount of charcoal. You may not realize it, but for me, that was all the split test data and the systems and the process that we were creating in and around digital marketing. And I realized that there was a market for this, that people wanted it, they wanted to buy it. So we hosted an event back 8 years ago called Traffic and Conversion Summit, and I remember, all right, and I remember, it was like the high school party where you invite a couple of friends and the whole school's there. So there were like 250 people came out to this first event, which was really surprising and really expensive. We lost so much money. So terrible. And at the end of it, before I realized how much money I had lost, I proclaimed, and we're doing it again next year. And we sold tickets and all this stuff. And I was like, that was such a terrible idea. But at the end of the next year, I was like, we're doing it again. And then that third year, I remember stepping out on stage and thinking to myself, when I'm looking out at like 800 people, this is a business. This is a thing. And so that was 5 years ago when DigitalMarketer.com was born. That was when we actually turned it into a company. But even to this day, we have a number of little lab rats that are out there, that little companies that we start selling everything from makeup brushes to crossbows to B2B type services. I owned an industrial water filter manufacturing company for a period of time. Don't ask why. We have, I still think to this day, the number one most confiscated knife by the TSA. So you're welcome, America. But really, I've always just sold stuff. So really long answer for what digital marketer is.
Love it. I love it. So if you can just take us way back, let's take a step back here. So little Ryan Deiss.
So what you're looking at today.
School, that's right.
There is no distinction.
What were those kind of beginning inklings that you were going to become an entrepreneur? Did you think you were going to be an entrepreneur, or what were?
I didn't know what it was, but I knew I liked money. And
I like money too.
right, well, I think that's important because it is very, look, it is very popular and I think good, especially in the startup area. Not money. That was a comma. Now we're moving on to another thought. Stick with me. It is very popular and very good. In this idea of we want to do all these startups because we want to make a better world, right? And I think there's a case for that. But look, at the end of the day, sometimes we're just making stuff that people want, and they're willing to pay for it, and that's good too. I just remember my favorite superhero growing up was Bruce Wayne, not Batman, mind you, like Bruce Wayne. I was like, this dude will like write a check, and now he's got a bat jet. That's cool. So there was probably something there. I remember, my best friend to this day and my attorney. Props, to the attorneys who are here. You guys, some of the best money you'll ever spend is on a really, really good attorney. But he got into. Yeah, he got really into origami one summer, and he kept making these like little origami things. And I was like, this is so terrible and boring. And I looked, I was like, you know what? We could sell this. So I went door to door in our apartment complex selling his little origami stuff. So it's always been there at an early age. But I remember, when I was a freshman at the University of Texas at Austin, that was really when kind of I got very, very serious, because my freshman year I met a girl, and
we're about to hear a love story, everyone.
Yeah, love story. No, I did. My freshman year, I met a girl. She had a boyfriend, so I had to wait to kill him. But just a little bit to hide the body. No, but I remember meeting her, and I remember pretty soon after when we started dating, I remember within a couple weeks, like, this is probably the girl that I was going to marry. Those of you who've heard me tell this story know how that part goes. Like, I didn't tell her that right away. That's freaking creepy, right? But that was when I got serious, because I'm broke and in college, and which is okay. You're supposed to be broke when you're in college. But I knew I needed to make some extra money, so I'm like, how can I do it? What's the best way to do it? Now, part of the story that I don't tell very often is I actually initially went and got a job at a startup in Austin. I don't want to name the startup because we're filming. I could probably get sued if I mention it. But this particular startup, I just wanted to go and get a job. I wanted to work at a startup. This was in 1999.
Are they still in business?
They are not in business anymore, for a reason that it will become very clear in just one second. So I had heard through a friend of a friend that this startup was hiring, so I'm like, cool, maybe I can go in there and work for stock options. I should be rich within like 8 to 12 months. It'll be great.
Of course.
But you got to think about the climate, right? Many of you are younger, some of you less young. But in 1999, right, I'm in Moore Hill Dorm on the university campus. Right across the street is Jester Dormitory, the largest dorm in North America. And it was there that Michael Dell launched Dell Computer Company, which was just rock. This was when, like, dude, you're getting a Dell was the thing. Does anybody remember that? Yes. Nope. Cool. Yes. Making me feel old. YouTube it. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. So it was a thing. It was happening then. There were people that were going. They were starting to work for startups. They were getting stock options. There was an exit very quickly, and they were rich. I'm like, this is my ticket. So I went. They said, yep, we just happen to be hiring a web designer. I said, do you know how to design web pages? I said, absolutely. Which, no, I didn't. But I figured. I interviewed on a Friday. They wanted me to start on a Monday, so I figured I had the weekend to learn. I had a pirated version of Adobe Go Live that my roommate was able to get for me, and I walked in on Monday, and I was a web designer. The thing that was interesting about that, though, spoiler alert, I wasn't very good. So at the time, do you guys remember when like these flash intros were a thing? Like you'd go to a web page and everything's like swirly? Yeah, I didn't know how to do that. What I knew how to do was to go and make a simple like square and put words in it. What's cool is, and this is just getting lucky, that worked. And if you look today at what works, it's still that. Right? A very simple page, headline on the top, couple of bullet points, and a form. So this particular company that I went to work for, what they were today you might refer to them as a spammer. Only because they had software that would harvest email addresses from like news groups and forums, and then they would spam people offers. But what was cool is some of the clients for this company, this was pre-Can Spam Act. This was back when people were actually happy to hear you've got mail, right? So
these were the guys that made Can Spam need to go in place.
Yeah, well, I will tell you, to this company's credit, there was an unsubscribe at the bottom, and if you clicked on it and unsubscribed, they actually unsubscribed you. Most companies that were in this industry, when you clicked on the unsubscribe link, that's when they mailed you more because they knew that you were a real human. So this company was actually, and some of our clients were like InStyle Magazine and stuff like that. I mean, it was actually a pretty big company. It was decently well funded, but for very obvious reasons, they went under. But I knew how to design web pages, and so. My first foray was in web design. My first client was a lactation consultant. If you don't know what that is, use some basic context clues, Google it, whatever you got to do. Now look, I've got 4 kids, right? I think this is great. My wife nursed all of our children. I think it's absolutely wonderful. But at 19, to be building a web page for a lactation consultant where you got like breast pumps and all different things like up on your screen at all times, like your friends think that you're into some like really weird porn. So I'm like, man, well, this lady, super nice lady, but her husband got laid off, and she's like, I'm sorry, I can't pay you. I'm not gonna be able to pay you for the website. I'm gonna have to go back to work. I'm not gonna be able to do this anymore. And she said, I can't pay you, but one of the things that I learned back in the spamming days was what worked the best then was to drive people to a simple landing page and to get them to opt in to this list so that it was like a real opt-in. Like that was the strategy. And the way that you did this was through something that we called a lead magnet, right? Offer a little thing, a special report, something like that, a chunk of value in exchange for the opt-in. So for her, I had actually had this little ebook contracted on how to make your own baby food, because she's like, I don't want to just stop at lactation. I want to do kind of consulting with young moms throughout the process. So what's the next thing when you're done nursing? Baby food. So let's how to make your own baby food. So I had this like ebook created on how to make your own baby food, and she said, look, just keep the ebook. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with an ebook on how to make your own baby food? And I went and I looked at it, I read, I was like, you know what, this is actually pretty good. I bet people would buy this. I looked at the search volume on it. I bet people would buy this. So I fired up my pirated version of Adobe Go Live, made my rectangle, and started typing. And within a day, I had a website up selling an ebook on how to make your own baby food. And PayPal had just come out. I started driving. This was Google itself was still a science fair project at this point. So I was optimizing for Alta Vista. I owned Alta Vista. And I was buying pay-per-click on GoTo.com.
So is that the first thing you ever sold online?
Yeah, that was the first product that I ever sold online.
Baby food.
Was a product on how to make your own baby food. It did a couple of sales a day, and I charged I think $14.95 for any. There's no Kindle then or anything like that. So I was paying nickels for clicks and making dollars. So I was rich. I was like, this is great. If I can just do this like 100 more times, I'll actually be able to make like a lot of money. And sure enough, by the time I graduated, I had done it about 100 more times. So. And
then you continued down the path. There's like this recurring theme of digital marketing throughout your entire life, which is really cool.
Yeah. Continue down. I mean, I kept doing that, and that's why, when I'm a senior now in college, I'm going to these, internet marketing events, trying to figure out how everybody else is doing it. They didn't know either, so they started asking me, and that's when I knew I was in the wrong place. And then they started asking me to speak, and that's when I really knew I was in the wrong place. But yeah, it's always been, you got to be able to sell something. The thought never crossed my mind, oh, this is a business, I can go, I'll go and raise money for this. It was just, I need food and shelter. And I would like to buy this woman that I love a ring. And that was my whole thing. If I could just make 10 grand, because I knew the diamond I wanted. If I could just make 10 grand, then I can buy her a ring, we can get married, and I figured that would be it. Not with the marriage, with the little stupid little website thingies that went on to become a business. But no, by the time I graduated, I had a pretty cool little publishing company, and I was selling different types of software and things like that. I was selling software on how to make pop-ups, for example, and software on how to block pop-ups. So it's kind of a nice little, good little ecosystem.
Yep, completely. Obviously, we're talking about a lot of super happy times in digital marketing, and I know that it hasn't always been that way throughout your career. There's been a lot of times where you've learned from the businesses that you've started. So if there's any, what are kind of the low points of entrepreneurship for you? When was rock bottom? When were you I'm done with this entrepreneurship?
I think I hit rock bottom 3 times that I can specifically recall. The first time was in 2004, so I was now married, and I was doing the business full time, and I thought, I'm rich, I'm great, we're gonna buy a house, I'm gonna get a car, and then I was largely dependent upon SEO and organic traffic, and then Google went and made a little update. I think it was the Florida update. And overnight, all my sites were gone from the rankings. And I said, okay, that's fine. I still knew a little bit about advertising, but it was a lot more expensive, infinitely more expensive. So but I said, I'm going to figure this thing out. Figuring out meant in 3 or 4 months, I had managed to accumulate $250,000 in credit card debt. Which was easier to do in 2004, 2005. You just call up your bank and hey, I need a line of credit. They're like, sure, you can breathe. Yeah, I was like, this isn't working. I remember thinking, if I can't turn this around, if there can't be some signs of life, then I'm just going to have to file bankruptcy and go crawling back to my old job in financial services that I only had for 6 weeks, and they probably wouldn't have taken me back. But that's what I was thinking, and thankfully, right. It's amazing how smart you get when failure is absolutely an option. I've heard people say that failure is not an option. Yeah, it is. It's a constant option, and it's a very real reality. But I didn't like that option, and so I was always, able to kind of figure out, okay, how do we do it? And was able to climb out of that hole. But the way that I climbed out of that hole is by not paying taxes. Apparently, that's a bad thing. So I was kind of back into the same hole again. A couple of years later that I dug out of, because now I owed $250,000 not to credit card companies, but now to people with missiles. So, so that was less cool. But then that's what it's always been, right? It's when you're starting a company, you're figuring all this stuff out. Every day. I didn't know. I thought if I spent the money, I didn't have to pay taxes on it. Apparently, that only matters for some things, not like the fun stuff. They still make you pay taxes on those. But it was it's been a learning experience all along. But there have been 3 times when I've woken up in the morning thinking that I was going to walk into my office, gather everybody together, and say, "I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to make payroll next time, so I'm going to have to let you all go." One time I had to do that, and that sucked. That sucked to have to shut down a company due to my failure, right? Because it was my failure, now it affected other people. And that's one of the burdens of leadership, right? You got to know that going into it, and if you're not willing to accept that, then you should not be a leader. You got to be able to take the bad with the good. And there were 2 other times where we got out by the skin of our teeth. I remember one time we had an unexpected merchant reserve release that allowed us to cover payroll for that time. I walked in prepared to do it. My bookkeeper at the time, who was also about to get laid off, said, "Don't do it. You won't believe what showed up in the bank account this morning." So, fun times, less fun times.
That's terrific. So you started several businesses. Digital Marketer isn't your first business. You kind of walked us through that journey a little bit. Do you want to how many businesses in total have you started?
So I don't know.
That's a sign of a serial entrepreneur.
It's got to be. It's over 50, but I don't think it's more than 100. But some of them are like little stupid things, right? That it's not its own. It didn't amount to much, right? And some of them it started as a company over here, and then we wind up gathering them together. So that's part of what I'm doing right now is taking a lot of these disparate little businesses and bringing them together into one kind of digital media holding group to try to create that. Look, starting a business is easy. I mean, that's easy. I mean, you're a phone call to a I don't know, one of the business startup thingies. What are those called? I don't even know anymore. No, not even the incubator. It's like the LegalZoom or something like that. Okay. Congratulations, you got a freaking entity. You go to 99 Designs, you got a logo. You print out a business card, you can say you got a freaking business. I don't think you have a business until you're really clear on, who do I serve? Who's the market that I'm serving, and what's the value that I bring? Then you got a whole lot of other marketing questions, but I think those are the biggies, right? And one of the things that I can say, and the reason that I've started a bunch of businesses, I've always kind of defined the businesses that we've started around the markets that we served, not the products that we sold or the way that we sold them. So if we were going to go and serve another market, then that was another company. If I had a product that would serve that market, great. But I think you're always better off saying, I'm in business to serve these people, to serve these groups. That's how you keep from falling in love with your product long after your customers have ceased to be in love with it.
And I think you do that really well, is being able to, quote unquote, kill your darlings. How do you know when to move on from a business? I think there's some people who do. They fall in love with the business and they don't know when to let go or pivot or move on to the next thing. What are some things that you look for personally when you know that it's like that business it's time to move on?
When nobody's buying it.
But can't you just live on to the next day? Someone will, right?
Oftentimes, no, right? So you need to take some time to really clarify, again, how do I articulate this message? I've seen some phenomenally great products that were so poorly positioned and the value proposition was so poorly articulated. But if people understand, if they go, oh, I get it, and they're still not giving you money, right? If you've got if your friends all love the idea, but no one else is giving you money, then it's either time to move on to a different product or to see who will value this, right? Who will value this thing? Because clearly it's not the people that you are talking to. We came out with a new product at Digital Marketer last year called Digital Marketer HQ. This was all of our trainings and certifications housed in one area. And we went out to the market that we had, small business owners, really like solos, a lot of solos, and a lot of startup people saying, we can now certify you.
Solo founders?
Mm-hmm. Okay. We can now certify you in content marketing. And they said, I don't care. I don't care to be certified. That makes no difference to me. So I remember being really frustrated, and at our big event, Traffic Conversion Summit, not the one that we did in 2017, but the one we did the year before in 2016, I said the entire third day, I'm just going to sit at our booth, at our event, and talk to people. I'm going to talk to people, and I'm going to see what did they say, who actually wants this? And what I found is when I talked to somebody, if they had one employee or if it was just them and they were solo or they were just getting started, they had no desire. But when I came up to somebody and said, how many people are on your sales and marketing team? If there were like 3 or 5, if it was more than 2, and I said, okay, are you looking to grow or, kind of up level your in-house digital marketing team? Oh yeah, absolutely. They bought about 100% of the time. And all the other people never bought. So it's really is clear. So what we realize is this is not a product to take to solos. This is not a product to take to startups. This is a product that we need to take out to companies that want, marketing managers who they want us to train their people for them so that they don't have to. This is a product that we can take to agencies, some of whom are in the room, that they can resell to their clients to make their clients a little bit better so that they're not so sucky as clients at digital marketing. So the product was always good, but the way it was positioned initially wasn't good. But I'll tell you, when you've taken your product out and you're fresh out of ideas of who to take this to, and when people get it, when they say, yes, I understand, when they can repeat back to you what it is, and they're still not buying it, then it's probably time to move on.
Awesome. So there's probably some other great ideas that we can give people who are startup founders. Who has a startup out here? And then who's a small business owner? I think there's, oh my goodness, oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so lots of just a mixed bag of entrepreneurs here, which is great. You're trying to find your product market fit. What are some tips that you found through your experience on how to find that product market fit? You know that you want to deliver whatever this product is to the world, and then how do you find the people that you really want to get this out to?
It's nothing earth-shattering here. You have to talk to people. Right, you do. It's not going to come from market research and from Google. I'm going to do keyword research and figure out what it is. At some point, you're going to have a conversation with other human beings, and look, it's a part of it. I'm an introvert by nature. I don't. This is great because you guys are over there. But in general, I don't like picking up the phone. But again, I like eating food. Yeah. So at some point, you've got to weigh these two things together. But what I did in the digital marketer booth that day was I had customer conversations, right? And I just asked questions, right? And when you figure out, okay, this is the ideal sales conversation, right? When somebody comes to me and I ask this question and they respond, and then I go back with them again and they go, holy crap, shut up, just take my money. That's when you know you have it. But you're probably going to have to talk to 20, 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 people before you figure that out. So if you're not going to industry events, I see a lot of startups that, especially if they've got some seed capital, they'll spend it on t-shirts and swag, and I think that's adorable. But what you should spend it on, we don't have, I think to this day, we don't really have much in the way of swag. But look, if there's a conference, there's a convention where our customers have all been graciously assembled by someone else. Do you realize what a gift that is? Someone else has gone through all of the work, and it is work. We do it. It's hard to get a lot of people in the same room. It's expensive. If somebody's gone through the work of doing that and you don't have a booth there, even if you have no direct profit motive there, just to talk to them, to have those conversations, you can in one or 2 days have 40, 50, 100 customer conversations. If you don't take advantage of that, you're crazy. Don't just talk to other startup people. Don't just talk to other founders. Don't even talk to, necessarily to just mentors and people like me, because we're all going to talk to you about the things that worked. Most of us have forgotten about the stupid crap that we did, right? It's the survivorship bias. So spend way more time talking to your customers. Way more time talking to your customers than talking to mentors, than talking to your coworkers, than talking to other founders that don't know anything about anything, and they're all just trying to eat food too.
I think you made a really good point about swag. I think half the time I go to a conference and most of the swag ends up in the trash before I'm even on the plane home. So that's really good advice. What are some, you kind of talked about the taxes and the kind of the awful things that you made mistakes on. You just mentioned don't do the stupid things. What's the stupidest thing you think you've ever done in business?
Holy crap. Seriously, not paying taxes for almost a year was probably, for over a year, almost a year, what am I talking about? For well over a year. That was easily the stupidest thing I've ever done. No, I mean, if I want to look at the things that I do repetitively, that continue to be stupid, it's trying to scale and build a product before I really know what what our people want. And it's oftentimes trying to build a product before I've sold it. So I'll go out and we will sell a product that doesn't exist. We won't take their money. If you do that, that's called stealing. So don't do that. But you absolutely can build a sales page, right? And we have sold lots of products that never got created. We've done it lots of times. We have sold lots of products that were super underdone. There are people in this room who have given me enormous amounts of money when, yeah, you know who you are. And I literally said, this doesn't exist yet. I don't quite know what it's going to be. If it sucks really badly, I'll give you your money back, but it'll probably be fun, right? So be willing to sell before it's done. Be willing to, because look, if worse comes to worse and it's not good, if you fail miserably, you can just give them their money back. So don't spend it, right? Don't spend it. But I know in the back of my mind, I don't, people are like, oh, it's got to be perfect, because if it's not perfect, then we're not really loving our customers. No, it's never going to be perfect, right? And I admit that it's a balance, but you're loving, protecting, and respecting your customers, which is one of our core values at Digital Marketer. If you admit, I'm sorry, we screwed that up, here, you can have your money back. You do what you can to make it right? That's the best you got to do. So, but still, every now and then, I decide, no, I know, I'm good now. I've got it all figured out. It's cool. We can build this. Let's invest an enormous amount of money, an enormous amount of time, then sell it. And only about 100% of the time, people don't buy it. It's when we get, and it's why, like, I can track all of the biggest successes at just about every company I've ever had. It's when we were about to fail, when we were right at that moment, right before failure, when I had no choice but to sell something that maybe in some cases didn't exist. That's when we had our biggest breakthroughs, right? Because that's when your brain is you're tapping into that lizard brain, and it's just getting it done, right? It's getting it done. And then you can go and layer on all the stuff. So don't build before you've sold, okay? And there's different ways to do that. There's having the conversations. There's literally putting up a waiting list page. Produce a demo. Produce something like, here's what it's going to be. If people aren't registering for your waiting list, guess what? They don't want it. Right? Don't incentivize people signing up for the waiting list. You're skewing your data. We're coming out with this thing. Here's how much it's going to cost. If you want it when it's available, we'll offer you a little discount, or we'll give you a couple little bonuses over and above, but don't and get this cool little ebook for signing up today. No. If you want this thing, then get on the waiting list. If you're not getting 10, 15% of the people that show up for the website to sign up for the waiting list, do you really think 2 to 5% of them are going to actually buy when they get there? They're not. I know, I've watched them not. So sell before you build. And the other thing that I would add to that is, if you focus on market-centric businesses, if you focus on who you're selling to as opposed to what you're selling, then if a product fails, you still own the audience, right? If you've gone through the work and gone through the trouble of aggregating the attention of a particular group of people, whether it's young mothers who want to make their own baby food, right? Oh, you don't want to make your own baby food? Well, let's talk about this other thing over here then. I'll flip the script. I am not loyal to product. I'm loyal to people, okay? I have no loyalties to any of the products that we have. If our people decide that they don't like it, it's dead to me. It is utterly dead to me. It is in the way. You're no longer satisfying this group of people. I am loyal to the people.
Yeah.
Thanks.
How do you think you keep your mindset in that space?
How do I keep my mindset?
I think that's really hard to do. I think a lot of founders hold on way longer than they should to products.
Well, I think that's the reason that I start so many companies is it's like I'm figuring this out about myself as you ask the question. So
I'm glad
it's like, yeah, exactly. It's like, I feel like I should be laying down on the couch right now. But no, if I'm really being honest, I think the part of the reason that I do it, it's kind of like emotional insurance. I've got these things over here so that I can kill this one because I've got a lot. And that's probably one of the reasons that I built my business the way that I have, which isn't for everyone. Look, it's a mess. Part of the reason we haven't really ever raised capital, apart from I don't like other people's opinions very much. And when somebody gives you money, you almost have to listen to them. But we're getting there in certain businesses as they're scaling. But part of the reason that it's been hard is people look at this stuff, they go, you're completely unfocused. And yeah, to an extent, that's by design, I want to be able to see patterns, like, why is this working over here and over here? These two things have nothing to do with one another.
So you're a scientist.
So that's probably being a little too gracious. Yeah, I think, yeah. Crazy, but I do think it's because we have so many, because there's so many ideas. And look, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a founder, surely you got more than one in you, right? Surely you got more than one. So if this one doesn't work out, that's fine. Like, wake up. If you're still breathing, you're good. You get another shot, you'll be fine, right? Don't center your identity in the business. I think that's another aspect. I mean, one of the nice things about having 4 kids is I don't get to pretend like I'm a founder and a business owner and all this, and a CEO for most of the day, right? Most of the day I'm dad, or I'm a husband. And so my identity doesn't rest within the particular companies, especially not anymore. And so that's the other thing I'd caution you on is, be really deliberate about where you place your identity and get really good at evaluating accurately worst case scenarios. We think sometimes that if we have a business failure, that we're just going to walk out and somebody will shoot us. It's just, that's not how it works, right? You won't die. I'm sorry?
I'm still paying SBA.
SBA? They will shoot, that's true. Yeah, don't take an SBA loan. But yeah, so I think accurately, intentionally placed identity and an accurate understanding of real worst case scenarios is a good way to kill your darlings.
Awesome. So last question from me, and then we're gonna do some 21 questions here. But then we will have some time, about 20 minutes for Q&A. So everyone start thinking about that. So what are the things that you do that keep you going being an entrepreneur? Because it's not always easy. It's a mental head game. So what do you think, what's the advice you can give to people about kind of keeping that in check?
You have to continue to take risks. Every time we'll get lazy. Like, I was telling this to the team, Marcus, is going to sound like we were just having this conversation because we were. Because look, last month we did, or this month rather, we tried some things, they didn't work out. And so we dropped the ball and we screwed some things up and we didn't get the result we wanted. And I remember everybody's disappointed, so that's good. We're supposed to be disappointed. When we don't succeed, you're allowed to be disappointed, but you can know that's when you grow. That's when you get better. You don't grow and get better when you win. Winning is the reward for all the work that you put in, right? Winning is the reward for the exercise that you undertook, but it wasn't the win that produced the strength, right? It was the hard work and effort. So you have to continue to take risks. Like, you have to continue to try new things. And you see this all the time as companies grow. They get fat, they get lazy, they stop taking risks. They now hire people who it's their job to maintain the status quo. I despise those people with every fiber of my being. That's like the friend that's like, of course it's totally fine to pick up pizza on the way to pick up dinner, right? Of course that's totally fine. Like, no, you need people around you who are like, no, man, you need to get in the gym. You're looking a little, right? And the way that I do that is by continuing to take risks and continue to do dumb things. If you do that, you're gonna stay lean whether you like it or not.
All right, here we go. 21 questions, rapid fire.
Let's go.
Cats or dogs?
I had a ferret named Murray.
I love it.
I'm allergic
Off
to cats.
To a great start already. Beer or wine?
Yes.
I heard you have a wine cellar, though.
I do. I love wine.
Yeah.
I like
What's
beer
your favorite
too.
Wine?
Kind of anything from Pritchard Hill in Napa.
Okay.
I'll drink.
Okay. Sushi or tacos?
Tacos. What the hell's the matter with you? Of course.
Austin, best place, right? There's breakfast tacos. It's amazing. Okay.
Literally everywhere has breakfast tacos.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Favorite app?
Favorite app?
App. On your phone.
Facebook. I was like, this is so lame, but I'm sorry.
Because it makes me money.
Every day I get a reminder of something cool that happened a year ago. That was the best thing that Facebook ever did.
Yes, yes. Favorite holiday?
Oh, 4 kids, Christmas.
Yes. Favorite car?
Favorite car?
Yeah.
I like my car.
What is your car?
It's a Tesla Model
You
S.
have a Tesla? That's awesome.
It has ludicrous speed that you...
Yeah. Favorite vacation spot?
We have a place on the Texas coast. That's my favorite spot.
Favorite book?
I'm supposed to say the Bible, but I already said Facebook, so my Sunday school teacher would be really, really, really upset. The book that I reread every year is The Goal by Eli Goldratt.
Okay.
The Goal.
Is there anything you're reading right now that you're really excited about?
I just started reading The Founder's Mentality.
Okay.
Have anybody read this? Super good. Read it. It's how to preserve a founder's mentality as you grow. Wish I'd have read it 2 years ago.
Favorite movie or TV show?
Sherlock, the new A&E Sherlock, super good.
Okay. Favorite artist? Like music artist?
Oh, this is bad. I don't listen to a lot of. Art artist Cezanne. So I'm going to give you painting artist because
Okay, all right,
I
there
listen
we
to
go.
podcasts.
I like it. I like it.
Milli Vanilli.
I feel like you walk up to a lot of like old school rap at your
This is true.
conferences. Yes,
Yes.
perfect. Okay.
Mostly because it's ironic. Because I'm like not cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your go-to karaoke song? That's my answer too. Anything you collect?
The Macarena, actually.
Okay.
Anything I collect?
Yeah.
Children.
Children. Yes. Any unusual skills or talents?
I can juggle.
Oh,
Poorly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wish I had like.
I'll juggle
water
a couple of
bottles.
chairs. It'll be fun. I'm not really going to juggle chairs.
All right. Your top strength in business?
Being willing to have really awkward conversations.
You're really good at that.
Yeah.
I think my favorite one was on stage this year when your mics weren't working. And you like,
I'm pretty sure I sexually assaulted that poor AV guy.
you did.
Yeah.
It was great.
Afterwards,
right on stage in
I felt
front
bad
of
about that. Yeah. I did the
was
full
great.
leg wrap as he was fixing my
was epic.
microphone.
Is that on YouTube somewhere?
I hope not.
What profession other than your own would you attempt?
I would love to do commercial development. Like this, walking around this place, whoever did this did an amazing job. This is a beautiful building. The fact that they're like cutting holes and stuff and letting light in, I would suck at it, but it'd be super fun.
Perfect. What is the best compliment someone can give you? The introvert in Ryan just fully displayed itself.
You're much taller than I thought you were. That's, by the way, never happened. It's always like, hey, you're a lot shorter than on the screen. It's like framing, shoot from an angle. It's learn from Tom Cruise. Keep going.
What's a cause you're passionate about?
We do a lot in at home in like Christian education and stuff like that. So alternative education outside of that.
Very cool. And then, what is one thing on your bucket list?
I've never been anywhere cool, so I would like to go and spend like a summer in Europe and go all around. Like I've been to like China, like not fun China, like industrial China and like the factory and stuff like that, because we do importing. I want to go to like other places that are really pretty, like random token touristy places. I want to check off I want to see the freaking Eiffel Tower, for example. The stuff that everybody else did. I haven't done that yet, so.
That's terrific. I would have not thought that.
Yeah, I'm incredibly uncultured.
Why haven't you traveled, right?
4 children, and I was trying to build a company and eat food.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Cool. All right. So now we have some time for questions.
So Ryan, the question is pretty much, first of all, thank you. I learned a lot, got my career started. a lot of your material.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
My question is more since you interact with a lot of like marketers and so forth, providing materials and so forth, with your experience of customer behavior, what do you think is some digital platforms are lacking in terms of finding the right customer for your advertisers or the businesses that advertise them?
So when you say digital platforms, do you mean specific, like
Google, Facebook, things like that.
I mean, Google and Facebook, I think there's very little lacking there. Those platforms, God dang it. And they have everybody, right? I would like to see LinkedIn improve their advertising and like not be like, hey, it's like $2, screw you. Have a little bit more of a marketplace, but they're getting it. So I guess good for them. Same with Twitter. But the reality is Facebook and Google, that's the duopoly, right? Those are the traffic stores. That's where you can go. And I think we should all be very thankful that's been created for us. I do think that as marketers, we should look to do more direct things with more targeted stuff than we do. And I think that's the future of digital media. You're going to have people buying programmatically and things like that through Google and Facebook. And I think much of where advertising is going in other channels is going to be more of a direct, more of a branded content type play. Have you guys heard like Google has come out with their own ad blocker? I'm going to bet that it doesn't block Google ads. Who's with me? But yeah, I mean, I think the ability to do advertising outside of those channels is going to be dramatically limited. It's going to be everything old is new again, right? It used to be we had 4 or 5 channels you could advertise on. It's going back there again.
How would you balance between you going out there, networking, talking to people, meeting people, and online marketing, where you're actually sending them emails or videos or anything like that so that they can invite them to an event? So would you do both, or which one would you focus more your energy on, especially if you only have a couple of weeks to have that event?
Sounds like it's very specific circumstance, hypothetically speaking. So it depends, right? Like I'm terrified of strangers. They want to stab you and sell you drugs. So I probably would not want to do the network. And the thing is, I've never been a great networker. And I think that in general, networking is overrated. So I'll answer it more generically, and then I'll come back specifically for your thing. So I've always just had good content, right? And if you have good content, and if people say, that person knows what they're talking about, it's amazing when you want something, you reach out to people and they're like, yeah, cool, I'm in, right? It all just happens. You don't really have to be a great networker. I'm terrible at follow-up, I barely remember to call my wife, it's her birthday. I'm like, love you. And like there's freaking reminders, like Facebook, calendar, like everything's reminding me. Like I'm really bad at that kind of stuff. I think if you're selling a very, very, very expensive product and you're truly doing face-to-face sales, then absolutely networking is the thing. With regard to filling an event, don't network with individual people. It's a very slow and expensive way to fill an event. Network with the people who have already established those relationships and get them to say nice things about you to their people. It's always a relationship. I don't care what you're selling. Said before, there's no B2B, there's no B2C, there's only H to H. It's only human beings selling to other human beings. So if you're gonna make a big ask, if you're gonna go to somebody and say, hey, give me some money or come out, give me a bunch of your time to come out, to this place, it's a big, big, big ask. If you don't know these people, if you haven't established that relationship, there's a good chance they're gonna go, no, I don't know you, right? But if somebody else says, hey, this is a good person, this is a cool person, you should really, really come out. Now, okay, I'm going to go not because you said you're great, but because they said you're great. And one of the things that networking and referrals does do is it allows you to skip a couple of steps in that customer journey because somebody else is saying nice things about you.
You said you put yourself through debt, significant debt twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you maintain your wife's support?
How did I maintain my wife's support? I lied. No, I mean, look. I think the single most important choice that you will make in your life is your choice in your mate, in your spouse. That is it. Period. End of story. That is the single most important choice you will make. Second to that is your choice in vocation. Thirdly is your choice in kind of your core group of friends. That's sort of where we get in if we're going to get in, just like secularly speaking, right? So that is, I think that's critical. And I remember when we were in that situation. I remember when I got the phone call from my accountant on a Sunday saying that I owed $250,000 to the IRS, and that was due on Thursday. And I'm sitting there on the couch, and I obviously didn't have it. And I'm literally, it's the only time in my adult life I remember crying. And I'm sitting there on the couch, and she just looked at me and was like, I don't get what the big deal is. You'll figure it out. You always do. Now, that sounds cold and heartless, but it's exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. I remember when I showed up at home at like 1, and she's like, what are you doing here? Why aren't you at work? I was like, I quit. Okay. And she's like, okay, I trust you. So I don't, look, I'm insanely blessed. I mean, I'm like about as blessed as it gets. And I've got a wonderful wife who's always been there to support me. She doesn't mind if I fail in business and if everything were to go away. She gets upset if I am positioning the business over her and the kids. And so that really keeps me a lot more grounded. It keeps my identity where it needs to be in an appropriate place. And as long as that happens, then we're good. I don't have an answer for you, though, if you choose poorly. Oh, sorry.
How do you see machine learning or artificial intelligence impacting digital marketing in the next 10 years?
I'm glad we're filming this so that somebody can show this in 10 years and I'll look like the idiot that's like, the personal computer will never be a big thing. But I think that I think it's very early. I think it's much earlier than people think it is. And I don't think it's going to be as significant as people think it will be with regard to marketing, with regard to selling, because you can figure out, algorithmically speaking, everything that I want, but if I don't like you, I don't care, right? You could be the best looking dude in the world. You can have everything that any woman would ever want, but if you just walk in, you're like, hey ladies, you're welcome, I've arrived, you're not gonna get a date, right? At least not with the one that you want, like the one I just described, right? You're gonna get the one that like you don't want to bring home to mama. So I think that in general, this is going to sound weird coming from somebody who owns digitalmarketer.com. I believe that marketing and advertising is the price that you pay for an inadequate brand. Okay, marketing and advertising is the price that you pay for not having good, strong relationships. We don't market that hard at Digital Marketer anymore. If you were to go and look at our sales letters, if you were to look at our videos, if you were to look at our things in general, it's like, we got this thing, it does some stuff that's good, it costs this much money, do you want it? Right? Because now we've got the relationships, right? Just like in general, I don't have to it's not a hard sell to get my wife to go on a date with me, right? So there was a time when it was a serious sell. Like it took everything I had. Like I'm pulling out all this stuff. So that's why I think it's going to be great for the sales process. Like I can envision a time when somebody's on with a client and they pull up their CRM and boom, there's everything that they need to know right then and there, but it's data, man, it's data. And data without interpretation, data without a delivery in a way that's meaningful to that person will always just be just freaking dorky stuff. So I don't know. All the people that are pronouncing this as the next big thing are nerds who don't like humans and who suck at relationships. I'm not buying it. But I think it's great.
Yeah, sure.
I'm George Burns.
Welcome, George.
I just went on your website 2 days ago, and I love the website. I love just what you're doing and everything, and just helping people and stuff. But one of the things that really jumped out at me, and probably the reason why I came, probably one of the things that got me to come today, was just, and I'm kind of a picture guy, so I don't read a lot, so I watch your videos, and I looked through your some stuff. Kind of nervous about it. So anyways, one of the things that really was cool.
It's okay, it's just me and you.
I saw, I saw the money, you know, and not that I'm in the money, but God's in the money because He owns a cattle on 1,000 hills. And there's a scripture that says, I'm not even sure if it's a scripture, but something that says.
It sounds better if you just quote something.
Right? And so I'm just telling you this is just kind of crazy. But I saw some of those checks, and it just touched my heart because I'm a giver. You know, I'd rather give than receive. And I'm just gonna. My wife and I wrote this book a while ago. We haven't really sold any because it's really not our passion to sell them. We've given away them to our clients and stuff. But and I didn't even know if it was God or not. But
Is there a check in it?
but I picked it up and I'm like, you know what? Honestly, I've never gone to an event like this, and I've never given a book away to anybody except for my clients. And I opened it, and I picked it up, and I just wrote this in it. And
Thanks.
Aw,
yeah.
Thanks, brother.
that's so great.
Bring it in. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Totally worth the selfie.
You mentioned your passion for still starting new businesses, even if that you started so many, and partly to be able to analyze different trends and so on and so forth. Is there a framework that you use when you're evaluating a potentially new niche that you want to get into? Or how do you go about the process?
How do I go about evaluating like whether or not a market's worth going into?
Yeah, just like
I've never once been first in anything. I think first is largely overrated. So the first thing I want to see is, are other people doing this? And then I'll look and say, can I do it better or differently? I don't worry about competition. There's so many people on planet Earth. I don't know if you've noticed. There's a lot of us. So many. They're all in the way. But so I mean, that's the first thing. Like, are other people doing this? I'm always looking for analogs, right? Is somebody else doing this? And usually what I'm trying to find when I'm starting is that kind of that niche within the niche, right? What's the piece that maybe it's a bit underserved, or how can I take something that's working and maybe bring it over here, or how can I see something that's working effectively and do better? But I always ask myself 4 questions. 1, who's the market? Who's my who? Who is the market that I am going to serve? If that is unclear, I will select, even if it's arbitrary. Okay? I will throw a dart. We're going to take this here. Because if you're not speaking to a person, then you're not actually selling, right? You're not advocating for a human being. Everything is market-centric. So first, who? The second thing is, what is the value that I deliver? So many times we get into business because we want the money, and I joked about that a bit, but make no mistake, I always had an answer to the question. If somebody said, well, why should I give you money? I had an answer to that. I've seen tons of people start products, and they don't have an answer to that question. And it's one thing, and a lot of times it's because what they're selling isn't actually valuable. They're selling something that somebody doesn't want, but that's where the third question is critical. How do I go about articulating this value? Okay, so whom do I serve? What's the value I bring? Third thing is, how do I go about articulating that value such that people say, okay, I get it and I want it. I get it and I want it. Usually, that's going to be describing the shift from the before state to the after state. Meaning, I don't care what you're selling, product, service, it is a vehicle. It is a transportational vehicle that moves people from less desirable before states to more desirable after states. It's the only thing anyone is ever selling, transformation. They're in a less desirable before state, they want to move to a more desirable after state. So most of selling and marketing and copywriting is simply saying, hey, you know how right now this is happening? That's frustrating, isn't it? We thought so too. That's why we made this. By the time you have this, now you'll have insert whatever their ideal desired after state is. Congratulations, you've just articulated value. Shift from before state to after state. That is the articulation of value. That's the third thing. And the fourth thing is, how am I going to go about acquiring customers profitably and predictably? Right? So how am I going to do that? So that's where I'm going to go. And typically that's going to start with buying advertising. I'm going to send them to a site that's going to talk about it. They're going to opt in or register or consume some other information, and then eventually I'm going to ask them for money. If the amount of money I received was more than I spent, or at least close, I keep going. If it's way off, I do something different. And that's no joke. That's how, I don't spend a lot of time doing market research. I don't do a lot of evaluation. Oh, it's working for them. I can add value. I know how to articulate it. Pretty good at this marketing thing. Let's give it a shot.
Cool. We have time for one more question.
I'd like to hear more about the books that you read when you were in the startup phase, and then when you were kind of in the middle phase of kind of in the angle where you were at. What books were you reading then, and then more list of the books that you're reading now.
Okay, I can get you guys if you like. I wrote out all the books that I wanted to. If you like, I can send that to you.
Yeah.
Because my memory is so terrible. It really is. I have to write everything down. So I will get you that, but I can tell you The Goal is a biggie. It's a book that started kind of the lean manufacturing. How many of you guys in here have read The Goal? Okay, that's tragic. Everybody should read The Goal. It's about manufacturing, except it isn't. It's about optimizing constraints within an assembly line. Now, they're speaking about it in terms of like an actual physical manufacturing. So we're making widgets here, and we do this to that widget, moving on through the process. But that's how everything works. Whether it's a customer coming in, like where is the constraint? Where's the bottleneck? And how do we improve upon that? Everything that I do in marketing, I think about it as an assembly line, and I say, how do we optimize the processes, right? Whether it's marketing or product creation or improving the enablement of our sales team, whatever it is, it is a process. So I read that. Ready, Fire, Aim is a book by Michael Masterson that I read, is another one that I go back and read very regularly. And it talks about the different phases of business and how to kind of get through each one of those phases. Markets, or you guys remember some of the other ones? Because I know I posted some of them up, and we gave some to our intern last year.
You mentioned Wizard of Ads.
Oh, yeah, the Wizard of Ads trilogy. Wizard of Ads. I can't believe I forgot. The author's a friend of mine, Roy Williams. Study, if you want to study marketers and marketing that works, study radio people. Radio ad writers. That radio is more like what's working on the web than anything else. Like direct mail, the long form works eventually. Like when they're further down, they'll read it. Believe me, they will read. I've had sales letters that are 20, 30 pages long and people read it. But that's later on. People won't give you that until you're further down the relationship spectrum. But what is Facebook, right? Think about how you're scrolling through Facebook and now all of a sudden an ad catches you and so you pause briefly. That's a radio ad. Right? You're driving down the road distracted and instantly something catches your attention. Okay? So radio, and Roy Williams is one of the best ad writers. So the Wizard of Ads trilogy.
And 4 Disciplines of Execution.
Oh yeah, 4 Disciplines of Execution.
What's the last one?
4 Disciplines of Execution. It's how to actually get work done on a consistent basis. For example, I can tell you right now, when I'm going to the gym on a regular basis, which isn't right now, it's because I pack my gym bag the day before. So that book is really about figuring out what are those lead measures, what are the things that you do that just by doing them, it makes the end result happen. So I can see them talking about like, we're gonna freaking go. So I will get you a complete list, complete reading list. I'll send that over to you.
All right, awesome.
I promise.
Cool. And then I'll post that up on the event site afterwards and on the Facebook page. So cool. Thank you so much, Ryan, for coming out and sharing your story. We got lots of little nuggets that I think have never really been shared about you before. So I'm excited to get those out there. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you guys. Thank you for having me.